Hello again, and this is the second article that was assigned for Class 4. This article is entitled Competing on Resources, Strategy in the 1990s by David Collis and Cynthia Montgomery. This article, like the other one written by Jay Barney, is another article about the resource-based view of strategy, or an article that espouses the resource-based view of strategy. This one is a little bit different than Barney's article, you'll see, and this one I think is perhaps less academic and more practical in nature and perhaps easier to read. So this article talks about competing on resources, and again, it's part of the resource-based view of strategy, which I hope you remember. The resource-based view of strategy says and explains how a company's resources drive performance, explains why some companies are more profitable than others, and is consistent with internal and external analysis. The resource-based view is really part of internal analysis. This article tries to make the link between internal and external, as I'll mention in a couple of slides. Each company has a unique set of assets and capabilities, and as I mentioned in the earlier presentation, assets and capabilities, or resources and capabilities, can be physical, property, plant, and equipment. They can be intangible, brand, patents, know-how, intellectual property. They can be cultural, involve values, processes, and routines, and also other capabilities. Now, the way that this article draws a better link between internal and external analysis is that they say that the value of resources must be judged in the context of market forces. So they're saying the internal capabilities, resources, and capabilities of the firm must be judged in the context of market forces, which makes absolute sense. I don't think Barney made that point quite as well or quite as clearly. So they, like Barney, define a list of characteristics or attributes of resources and capabilities that are important for a firm's success. And so let's just go through the list. Like Barney, they say, to be valuable, a resource must be hard to imitate. Is it hard to copy? The physical uniqueness, the path dependency, the causal ambiguity, all of these things were mentioned by Barney as well. So, is the resource hard to imitate? Do I have something in my company that some other company would find hard to imitate? Is the resource durable? How long does it last? Does it depreciate? Does it reach economic obsolescence because of technology changes and so forth? Another test of the resource. Is it appropriable? Can it be appropriated by a competitor? Who captures the value that the resource creates? Basing strategy on resource that is not bound to the company is risky. So basing a strategy on something that exists outside the company, a resource that exists outside the company, is not a good strategy. Fourth, like Barney, they list the test of substitutability. And fifth, they list the test of competitive superiority. Whose resource is really better? Is my product or technology better than my competitors? Competence needs to be measured relative to competition and relative to the marketplace. So that's a really excellent point. I think a real improvement based upon or relative to Barney's article. So let's just compare the list that they have relative to Barney's list. Both have inimitability. Both list substitutability. Barney lists rareness, and Barney lists value, which I guess you could say is similar to some of these others. And Barney also lists substitutability, which Collis and Montgomery do as well. So there is some overlap, but they're a little bit, each one of them is a little bit different than the other. So Collis and Montgomery make the point that even if these tests are met, even if the resources have those attributes that normally create competitive advantage, the resources still need to be joined with other resources and embedded in a set of functional policies and activities. This, we'll see later in the course, is very similar to what Michael Porter says. Michael Porter says that a company, to be successful at its strategy, must do at least 4 key activities better than its competitors to succeed, and must be at parity on the other activities in order to have a sustained competitive advantage. So a little bit of similarity there. So if even if they do have these, the resources do have these attributes, they must be joined with other resources into a set of functional policies and activities, an activity map, if you will. Also, to have a sustained competitive advantage, the firm must continue to invest in resources. Technology changes, customer needs change, resources become obsolete. You must invest in your resources and upgrade your resources to stay competitive. And finally, they recommend leveraging resources into all markets. So if you have a particular resource that could create a competitive advantage in more than one market, leverage that resource to get into the other markets. And we're going to talk about this kind of a strategy later in the course. But let's relate this back to something we studied earlier in the course, which is the Ansoff matrix. And remember, the Ansoff matrix is a 2x2 matrix. On one axis is existing product versus new product. On the other axis is existing market versus new market. So what they're saying is if you have a resource, or let's say a product, that could be applicable in more than one market, leverage it into all of the markets. Leverage the existing product or existing resource into new markets.